All right. Hare Krishna, devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So welcome everyone to our, is it 38th? 38th. Our 38th evening program of Brihad Bhagavatamrita seminar. Hare Krishna. We are in the 7th chapter of the first part of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. It's the last part. The last chapter of part one. Yeah, it's the last chapter. And we're just beginning. And the story most recently has been that Uddhava was making his presentation about how Krishna should go back to Vrindavan. Balaram was saying the same thing. Rohini was saying the same thing. The others were not quite clear. Krishna was sort of apparently confused, you could say. And then as the understanding became more and more clear of how devastated the Brijbasis were, then Krishna and Balaram became totally overwhelmed. And the other Yadus, Krishna's wives and Devaki and so on, totally overwhelmed and just lost control altogether. And then they let out in that stage of total, complete devastation, they let out a great roar. And the whole city came, hearing that roar in the mood of separation. The whole city came, everyone came, and everyone was crying. Everyone was completely overwhelmed. And then Lord Brahma, observing from Brahma Loka, he understood that we have to do something about this. We just can't go on like this. So therefore Lord Brahma came. And he made a plan. He made a plan that just near Dwarka, just very near actually, is a special creation of Vishvakarma, the architect of the demigods. A special creation called Nava Vrindavan, New Vrindavan. And even though Krishna had been living there in Dwarka for some time, and this place was actually quite close, but Krishna didn't know. Nobody knew that this place was there. Nobody knew, but Lord Brahma knew. And that new Vrindavan, it's just like Vrindavan. It's identical. The trees and the forest and the grass and just the whole setting is exactly like Vrindavan, Vrajmandala. But except for the people, Vishvakarma couldn't make real people like real Nanda and Yashoda, real Srimati Radharani, and so on. So he made statues. Yeah. So Lord Brahma's plan then is that let us take Krishna and Balaram there on Garuda. And Rohini can come because she was in Vrindavan. So she knows what Vrindavan is like. So she can go and she'll be able to help with the situation because it'll be a little tricky. Krishna and Balaram being so overwhelmed. So she'll be able to help sort of manage the situation. So she can go, but the other Yadus should not go because they'll create a disturbance because they'll know that this is, they'll see that this is not actually Vrindavan, it's a replica. And the people are just statues. And so they'll create a disturbance and sort of spoil the whole thing. So they mustn't go. Only Rohini with Krishna and Balaram. Okay, so let's begin again with verse 8. What is it? 7 and 8. Let's begin with 7 and 8. Sri Brahma said, there is another Sri Vrindavan here, between Raivata Hill and the sea, and Nanda, Yashoda, and others are present within it in replica images with similar herds of cows. That Vrindavan, constructed by Vishvakarma, appears just like the Vrindavan of Mathura. Come here to Dwaraka. So Brahma continues, so carefully take Krishna and his brother in their present state and gently carry them there. But only Rohini should go with them, no one else. Because Krishna and Balaram, they're unconscious. Rohini, I guess, is not unconscious, although she's pretty close to it. But Krishna and Balaram are definitely unconscious. So Garuda will take them. They'll fly over and land in this Nava Vrindavan, this new Vrindavan. And then we'll bring them back to consciousness. And they'll think they're in Vrindavan. And therefore, Krishna's extreme separation from Vrindavan, Krishna will be pacified. That, oh, I'm in Vrindavan again, how wonderful. Krishna will be pacified. Yes. And because Krishna was just, it was too much. The separation from Vrindavan was just too much, as we read. He couldn't get up. He couldn't do anything. So now he's going to feel like he's in Vrindavan. Okay. And there, those statues, images, static images of the Brijbasis are so lifelike that Krishna and Balaram will think it's them. They're just so lifelike. Even though they're statues, they can't talk or move. But Krishna and Balaram will think that they're the Brijbasis. So verse 10, Sri Parikshit said, thus Brahma, with some effort, brought Garuda back to his senses, and that most expert servant, Garuda, very slowly placed the two lords on his back. So Balaram and Krishna, Garuda, without waking them or bringing them back to consciousness, Garuda places them on his back. Advised by Brahma, everyone else went back home, not to that new Vrindavan. Everyone else went home, and they can just sort of carry on there without upsetting this whole program of Brahmas for pacifying Krishna. Meanwhile, as Krishna and Balaram were being carried by Garuda, Balaram more or less regained consciousness. Upon arriving at Navavrindavan, Garuda and Balaram gently placed Krishna on a bed. The gopas and gopis of Navavrindavan stood around him as if they were Krishna's real cowherd men and women. Verses 13 and 14. So, now the thing is, as right now, not everyone went back home when Brahma told them, but some of them just followed Krishna on Garuda. Followed Garuda, who was carrying Krishna. And so they came to this place too. Uddhava came there with Devaki, who dearly loved her son, and also with Rukmini, Satyabhama, other queens, and Padmavati. They simply couldn't leave Krishna in such a state. So at Brahma's request, they hid themselves and took up positions some distance away from where they could still see Krishna. So they some hid themselves amongst the trees, and others adopted different disguises or different types of camouflage to sort of merge into the forest setting. Narada, however, thinking he had committed an offense, did not accompany the demigods and the Yadavas. Instead, with great curiosity, he hid himself in the midst of the sky, fixing himself in a yoga sitting posture to observe the sweetness of the Lord's acts. So Narada's thinking that he committed an offense in the sense that things were okay before he came to Dwaraka. Things were not completely okay, of course. Krishna was in this very disturbed state, feeling separation from Vrindavan. But everybody else was okay. You know, they were concerned about Krishna and the Brijbasis, but they were okay. They hadn't lost control and gone into some sort of state like transcendental madness, which they did go into when Narada had come and stimulated Uddhava, and this whole big discussion arose about should Krishna go back to Vrindavan and all of that. That was all stimulated by Narada, by his arrival and his taking great interest in Uddhava. So he was responsible for this whole unsettled state that Krishna particularly was in, but everyone else was in also. So therefore Narada thought he'd committed an offense. Otherwise he would have just gone on with the others. But no, he, as it says, hid himself in the sky somehow, sitting in a yogic posture. Yeah. Okay, 17. Here we go. Verse number 17. It's intense, and it's going to get more intense. Garuda positioned himself even higher in the sky, invisibly following his master to provide shade with his wings. After a few minutes, Krishna's brother came back almost to normal consciousness. That best of discerning thinkers understood the entire situation. Yes, well, Balaram, he's the crest jewel of the intelligent. Yes. So he, it's not exactly that he came back to normal, like everything is normal. Of course not, because they're in this Nava Vrindavan. How could things be normal? This just extraordinary place. So, but even though he's still just not completely together, he understood Brahma's plan, and he was ready to cooperate with Lord Brahma's plan. 19 to 20. Balaram quickly cleaned his own lotus face and that of his younger brother. Then he gently placed a flute in the waist of Krishna's dhoti, a buffalo horn and stick in Krishna's hands, a garland of kadamba flowers around his neck, a peacock feather ornament on his head, and newly fashioned rings of gunja berries on his ears. So Balaram is dressing Krishna up as he was in Vrindavan. So that when Krishna does return to consciousness, Krishna will immediately just think that he's in Vrindavan. Yeah, as he was before. Thus, having arranged a forest outfit for Krishna with items made by Vishvakarma. Just say, Vishvakarma, he's such a special person, such knowledge and understanding, even of transcendence. So, thus having arranged a forest outfit for Krishna with items made by Vishvakarma, Balaram, with some effort, lifted Krishna and then spoke to him loudly. So, of course, Balaram also dressed himself in forest-type attire. Otherwise, if he's in his dwarka, very opulent manner of dressing, of presentation, it's going to be a rasabasa with the Vrindavan situation. So, all these things like Gunja, that's from Vrindavan, and various other things which they've used, which Balaram has used, buffalo horn, kadamba flowers, peacock feather ornament, and all these different things. You don't get them in Dwarka. They're native to Vraja. But Vishvakarma, who's so expert, he has the creative skills of all the demigods. He had made convincing substitutes for like kadamba flowers, which don't grow in Dwarka at all. So all these different, somehow or other arranged things that look like those Vrindavan things. So, okay. So now it's time to get Krishna back together again. Sri Baladev said, Sri Krishna, Krishna, my dear brother, get up, wake up from your sleep. Just see, it is now getting late. The cows are already entering the forest. Sridham and your other friends are here waiting for you, and your parents are so filled with love that they cannot even speak to you. This is Balaram being clever. Yeah, they're statues, but he says that they're just so overwhelmed they can't even speak or move. So, yes. So let's see what happens. These, these gopis are watching your lotus face and laughing at you as they whisper something in one another's ears. You know, they might be making some comment about, oh, Krishna's still so tired. It's late in the morning, but Krishna's still so extremely tired. Yeah, they know, of course, that Krishna was up the whole night dancing with them. Yeah. So, anyway, let's see what unfolds. Sri Parikshit said, in this way, Balaram filled the scene with talk. He called Krishna by his various names, caressed him, and dragged him around in his arms until Krishna finally got up and came back to some sort of consciousness. Some sort of consciousness. Krishna uttered the words, Shiva, Shiva, and suddenly stood up, a look of surprise on his face. So it was because Krishna was in such a heavy trance, with all those emotions from the discussion, particularly or finally with Balaram about and Uddhava about, got to go back to Vrindavan. So he went into such a trance, it was not easy for Lord Balaram to revive him. So Balaram had to kiss him, embrace him, call him by different names, Krishna, Govinda, Gopala, and like this, and coax him in very gentle and tender ways. And when all else failed, he just dragged him out of the bed. He just dragged him out of the bed. And then Krishna finally woke up. But he's still somewhat bewildered. And therefore it says that he seemed to come back to normal consciousness. Or we read, Krishna finally got up and came back to some sort of consciousness. Some sort of consciousness. 27. Krishna opened his eyes, smiled, and quickly looked around. Seeing Nanda in front of him, he felt embarrassed and bowed down to him. So Krishna, first of all, he laughed at himself for having slept for such a long time. He really slept in. Something, that's the idea being presented to him. And when he saw that there's Nanda Maharaj, and Nanda Maharaj is all together and just ready for action, and he's been up for a while, so Krishna sort of felt embarrassed. And he bowed down before Nanda Maharaj because Lord Krishna was accustomed to observing the Vedic etiquette of offering obeisances to his father as soon as he wakes up. Krishna saw Mother Yashoda also standing nearby, her eyes open wide and unblinking, as if pasted onto her face. Laughing in joy, Krishna lovingly spoke. So, yeah, she's a statue or something along those lines, a sort of diorama or, three-dimensional type of figure. And of course, as such, Mother Yashoda doesn't blink. Of course, she doesn't blink. And Krishna sees Mother Yashoda just standing there looking at him with unblinking eyes. And Krishna assumed my mother is stunned by motherly love, natural motherly love. So Vishvakarma's illusion is working, it seems to be working, at least while Krishna is still somewhat bewildered. He hasn't really got himself back together. So verse 29, Krishna's now going to prepare for going out to herd the cows. The Supreme Lord said, "Dear mother, this morning during my sleep, I saw many amazing things in just a short moment, as if I was awake." So, of course, previously, Krishna was living there in Vraja, and that was the only way of life he knew. So now, he's been in Dwaraka, but now he's been brought here to this new Vrindavan, and he really thinks it's Vrindavan. And so now he's remembering some of his experiences in Dwaraka, and he's thinking, gosh, I had these extraordinary dreams. I saw that I'd gone from here to Madhupuri, means Mathura. There I saw wicked men like Kamsa slain, kings like Jarasandha vanquished, and the demigods satisfied. So this is all Mathura Leela, of course, killing Kamsa and like that. So, but Krishna thinks his remembrances of his life in Dwarka, this is all just some dreams he had while he was asleep just now. 31. A great city called Dwarka was built on the shore of the ocean, and so many other things happened. But now there isn't time enough to tell you about them all. It's because this long dream distracted me that I didn't get out of bed on time like every other day. So he's explaining all of this to Mother Yashoda. Dear, so now he speaks to Balaram. Dear respected brother, if you don't think this wonderful matter impossible, I'll explain it to you in detail when we go to the forest. 34. Sri Parikshit said, after speaking in this way, Krishna offered his mother proper respects. Then the very expert Rohini sensed that Krishna wanted some food to take with him to the forest. Yes, so Rohini's there. She's not a statue. And she knows how things work in Vrindavan because she lived in Vrindavan when Krishna and Balaram were there. All the others were not in Vrindavan when Krishna and Balaram were there. I mean, the other Yadus from Dwaraka. But Rohini was. Therefore, she will interact with Krishna, and in this way, Krishna will think everything's normal because she's like a regular human, and she will know what sort of food to get him if he wants some food, and just what his program is, his sort of sequence of the things he does before he goes out herding the cows. Yeah. Because if Krishna asked Mother Yashoda, the statue, can you please give me some prasad to take out for lunch in the forest? And Mother Yashoda, who's a statue, if she doesn't answer, then Krishna may become suspicious. Sri Rohini said, dear child, your mother has no other son but you. She was so worried today by your extra sleeping that now she feels a bit ill. So I think we have talked enough. Rohini keeps the sort of the bewildering situation and everything, keeps it going on. 36. Yeah. So I think we've talked enough. The cows and the boys tending them have already gone ahead. You should quickly follow them. I will prepare some nice refreshments for you and send them to you in the forest. 37 and 38. Sri Parikshit said, Krishna offered his respects to Rohini, who had spoken to him with such love. Then with a smile on his face like a thief, he stealthily took from Mother Yashoda's hand the butter she was holding. He then left to join his older brother, calling out his name. Generous Krishna did not eat this butter before reaching the cows. So, pretty much Krishna trusts Rohini as much as Mother Yashoda, more or less, So he told Rohini, offer my obeisances to your feet. Uh, Vishvakarma, of course, he knew that Krishna likes fresh butter and that Yashoda often has some fresh butter in her hand ready to give to him. So Vishvakarma made sure that the statue of Mother Yashoda had some butter there that Krishna could take. Yeah. So now Balaram, you see, Balaram thinks that Krishna is normal, Krishna's all right. I don't need to supervise him. It's a bit risky, actually. So therefore, Balaram has gone ahead. And there's another reason, a more confidential reason, of course, is that there's a statue of Srimati Radharani there. And Balaram feels embarrassed if he is around in the vicinity when Radha and Krishna interact with each other. So that's another reason why he went ahead. Partly because he thought that Krishna's back to normal, I don't need to supervise him. And partly because he wanted to let Radha and Krishna associate together before Krishna came out herding the cows. 39. In expertly pleasing words, Krishna had asked his two mothers to make lunch for him. Then he had set off, and on the way he had met some of the gopis and enjoyed some joking talks. We read how Krishna was wanting some food, and as described here, in expertly pleasing words, Krishna asked his two mothers, that's Yashoda and Rohini, to make lunch for him. So he has a special plaintive way, emotional way of asking, Mata, please give me some food. I can't imitate Krishna, but it's something like that. Emotional, very heartfelt. Mothers, please give us some food. And he does like that because they enjoy it. Mother Yashoda and Rohini, they really love it when Krishna relates with them as if he's just their young boy. So, okay, verse 40. As he continued walking, playing his flute to keep the cows from wandering off, he then came upon Sri Radhika with her girlfriends and spoke to her with witty comments and charming smiles. So, First of all, well, not exactly first of all, but just going back a few minutes, Krishna, as we read, he was in very expert emotional ways asking his mothers, Yashoda and Rohini, to make lunch. Then we read in verse 39 that then he set off, but on the way he met some of the gopis and enjoyed some joking talks. So but then he came upon Sri Radhika. This is what verse 40 says. He then came upon Sri Radhika with her girlfriends and spoke to her with witty comments and charming smiles. So he met some of the gopis just before, though, and said a few funny things to them. But then he comes to Srimati Radharani and her friends, Gopi friends. So who did he meet before? Just in between asking his mothers for some lunch to be sent out, then in between that and meeting Radharani here, well, you know who that is, don't you? That is Chandravali and her friends. So he spoke a little with them, then he walked on, and then he met Srimati Radharani and her girlfriends. So this means that earlier, when the gopis had got up and left their houses, they sort of dispersed themselves in different specific groups on the way to the forest, knowing that Krishna would be coming that way shortly. Yeah. So there's a nice quote here, Bhagavatam 10:44-16. The ladies of Mathura speak of the young gopis who go out to see Krishna. Listen to this. 10:44-16, Bhagavatam. Hearing Krishna playing his flute as he leaves Vraja in the morning with his cows, or returns with them at sunset, those young girls quickly come out of their houses to see him. They must have performed many pious activities to be able to see him as he walks on the road, his smiling face mercifully glancing upon them. Verse 41. So now Krishna is going to speak to Srimati Radharani. Listen to this. Sri Nanda Nandan said, O mistress of my soul, why don't you speak to me, your devotee, whom you've now met in a secret place? What are you so busy with, my proud lady? Of course, this is obviously a statue. You could say it's a deity, but it's not, a deity which is worshipped in a formal way. This is, let's just say, statue, or doll, we could say. Yeah. So Radharani, the statue, of course, she doesn't say anything. She doesn't move, nothing. And Krishna's, he's accepting it's Radharani because she looks so perfectly like Srimati Radharani. But she doesn't talk. That's a problem. How did I offend you? O omniscient one, you must know everything that happened today in my dream. Yes. Because there was no evident reason for Radharani to be angry with him and not speak with him and not interact. So Krishna thought she must be angry, must have been upset because of his dream somehow. Maybe she has some mystical power of knowing past, present, and future, and including what Krishna has been dreaming about. That's pretty advanced. Mystical powers. Yeah. So knowing everything past, present, and future, including what he had dreamed of, and what he had spoken to his mother about his dream. If you remember, he told Mother Yashoda that, I had this dream of Dwaraka, and all these things. Yeah. And through her mystic powers, she knew what he was going to say to her about that. And what he, anyway, yeah. So Krishna began presenting these thoughts to Radharani, hoping to pacify her, divert her from her anger. And the fact that she just stood still like a statue, without moving, without blinking, without anything, didn't uh, didn't disturb Krishna, because the gopis, they do like that sometimes in the Vrindavan pastimes. The gopis become stunned sometimes through excessive love, just too overwhelming love. They become stunned. And sometimes they become shocked when he speaks some of his witty, clever words, and they become immobilized for a little while. And seeing he was in this unusual mood and he had been through all these unusual things this morning, Krishna could understand that, yeah, I can imagine this morning's been so strange. I'm not surprised she's a bit angry with me. Yeah. So Krishna continues, I left you and went elsewhere. In that distant place, I married many princesses who had been preparing to end their lives. And I fathered sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons. So all of this is coming back to Krishna. This, of course, is what has been happening. Krishna has been living in Dwaraka like this, with sons, grandsons, and eventually great-grandsons. This has all been happening in reality. But Krishna now is thinking this is all part of that dream I had, which is just, I never had a dream like that before. So overwhelming. So, yeah, 44. Anyway, right now I have to go to the forest. Tonight at dusk, O bestower of satisfaction, you will enjoy with me. 45. Shri Parikshit continued. Having said this, Krishna threw a handful of flowers at Sri Radha, looked all around, and then embraced and kissed her. He then went ahead to meet the cows and cowherd boys. 46. As Devaki saw for the first time how wonderfully and all attractively Krishna was dressed for Vraja, and how he was playing his flute, milk started flowing from her breasts in great love, even though she was no longer young. I mean, she's really no longer young, because Krishna, her son, has had sons, and then grandsons, and then great-grandsons. So his mother is definitely no longer young at all. Yeah. So, anyway, okay, let's see. Verse 47. Rukmini, Jambavati, and other queens, bewildered by an intensity of love they had never felt before, lost their composure, fainted, and fell to the ground. Just amazing. So, of course, Krishna's queens, they're royalty. They were all brought up in royal palaces with parents who are kings and queens, and they're ruling class. They're ruling class, and when you're like that, you've got to behave seriously in public. You can't just fool around in public. So the queens, Krishna's queens, were used to acting in very sober and very mature and responsible ways. But now, these emotions which are coming upon them through seeing Krishna in his Vrindavan mood, and the emotions he's showing, the way he's interacting with Yashoda, Rohini, and now with Radharani. The queens have never seen Krishna like this. This is just so absolutely incredible. So they fainted and fell to the ground, which you don't do when you're a princess in the family of the rulers of the particular area. So, verse 48. Even old Padmavati became intoxicated. Padmavati, driven by lust. She, as well as Satyabhama, acted out, embracing and kissing Krishna again and again. So she, Padmavati, and Satyabhama, they acted out as if they're embracing Krishna and kissing him again and again, and ran after him with arms extended to try to catch him. Kalindi, the daughter of the sun god, had seen Krishna like this before. Being very intelligent, she somehow calmed herself down. She and Uddhava grabbed Satyabhama and Padmavati and dragged them back, because this is what Lord Brahma didn't want to happen. That Krishna will see people from Dwaraka and realize, hey, I'm not in Vrindavan. I'm in Dwaraka because you're from Dwaraka. This is the thing. So Kalindi, the daughter of the sun god, she and Uddhava grabbed Satyabhama and Padmavati and pulled them back into hiding so as not to spoil everything. So Kalindi, who is this Kalindi, the daughter of the sun god, who had seen Krishna like this before? This is Queen Kalindi from Dwaraka, and the river Yamuna in Vrindavan. They are one and the same person, just in different situations. So, so among the Dwaraka queens, Kalindi, who is the river Yamuna, had known Krishna during his cowherding days in Vrindavan. She had been there. Yes. So externally, this is why she was able to stay sober and control Satyabhama and Padmavati. But also, of course, it was a big struggle for her. But understanding the plan of Brahma to help pacify Krishna, she remained calm and helped control. She caught hold of Satyabhama, and Uddhava caught Padmavati. So, meanwhile, Lord Govinda went ahead, tending his cows. When he saw the ocean before him, he thought it was the Yamuna, and with delight he called his friends to come play in the river. However, the river has grown. It's an ocean now. It's the, what would you say, the Indian Ocean now. So Krishna, but still, Krishna is still in that trance. And he's convinced it's Vrindavan. So he calls out, "My dear friends, where have you gone? O Sridham, Subal, Arjuna, happily come here quickly. We can let our cows drink water from this river Yamuna, and we can play as much as we want, swimming in her gently flowing clear, cool water." Then, what happened? What happened? As he goes down to the ocean. Wow. Tune in tomorrow night and find out what happens when Krishna sees it's the ocean. It's got big waves. It's not, I never saw the Yamuna like this. What's going on? So you'll find out tomorrow night. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Brihad Bhagavatamrita ki jai. Srila Sanatana Goswami ki jai. Gaur Premanande.